Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Hello, Roberters, Robertolinos. Sorry for the delay. I was having some restarting issues. You know, it happens. But welcome to J is for Justice and welcome to this evening's Monday Night Live. I have a new case out of Wisconsin that is crazy, mind-blowing, and everything above. Maligator, that music was getting you out of your funk? Oh my God, maybe we need to go back to it. No, I'm just kidding. You're going to call Ghostbusters? Roberters, you're going to call Roberter. That's who you're going to call. You're going to call Roberter. Nice to see you, Mal, and Muffin Top, and Potato, and Carrie, and Shell. Mike Sanner, how are you? Grandpa Smith on the rocks. Grandpa Smith. I wonder who that is.
Yeah, they're loud and beefy.
But where is my Carrie? It's been so long. Oh, it's Poopy Butt. Got you. Okay. All right, you guys are going to be...
Bundy's a rumpkin. Bundy's a poop butt. Bundy's his mama's boy.
Hey, One Shot Scott. How's it going? She was dancing in her seat. Well, it's good to hear that, Mal. All right, so let's get right into this, shall we? So the Apple River is a river in... Wisconsin, you know, and it's like summertime. It's fun. You go tubing, you get some cocktails. You know, it's supposed to be fun. But on Saturday, it wasn't so fun. So let's talk about Nicolae Mew. Tracy V, good to see you. And the Krugs. The Krugs is back. Welcome back, you guys. Good to see you, Rumpkins. All right. Let's do this. First, we're going to look at the fruit fly in my face. No. All right, so this is this guy's charges right here. First, before we start talking about him, I know you loved the thumbnail, ladies. Try to control yourselves. So this is the best of the criminal complaint that I've gotten as of yet. I did request it. I know other media outlets requested it as well. So hopefully we'll get the whole thing. Oh, you've been moving? Oh, that does blow. So this man, Nicolae Mew, lives in Minnesota with a date of birth of 12/11/69. Now, he doesn't reside in Wisconsin. He resides in Minnesota. And he is charged with one count of first-degree intentional homicide. And it says the above-named defendant on or about Saturday, July 30th, 2022, in the town of Somerset, St. Croix County, Wisconsin, did cause the death of victim 1 with intent to kill that person, contrary to section 940.01, blah, 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 Wisconsin statute. It's a class A felony, and upon conviction shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life. And then he is charged with 4 counts of attempted first-degree intentional homicide. And those say the same thing for each one. that the above named defendant on or about Saturday, July 30th in the town of Somerset, St. Croix County, Wisconsin, attempted to cause the death of and victims 2, 3, 4, and 5 with intent to kill that person contrary to Section 90401 Wisconsin statutes, and that's a Class B felony, and conviction is up to 60 years. Oh, excuse me. And that is the criminal complaint. Hopefully we'll get more info that's coming out. So let's talk about what happened here. We all know what this dude's charged with, but he was also in court today as well. And we will get to that. We will get to that hearing as well. But let's get the gist of what's going on here. Let's read this one first. Thank you. Thank you for the bless yous. I don't know what's going on. I have just been super duper tired. I'm sneezing. I'm congested. But I'm here and I'm breathing. So life is A-okay, right? Let's move this back where it's supposed to be. And then we will begin. Okay. So I can't vouch for what people write in these. This is from 960 The Ref. This is a radio station. A 52-year-old Minnesota man is facing a host of charges in connection with a mass stabbing that killed a 17-year-old boy and wounded 4 others on Wisconsin's Apple River. St. Croix County Sheriff Scott Knudsen identified the suspect as Nicolae Mew from Prior Lake, Minnesota. Prior Lake, not to be mistaken with Mr. Pryor, Chin Daybell's lawyer. St. Croix County Sheriff. Mew was charged Monday afternoon with first-degree intentional homicide and 4. That's it. Okay, so they're saying they don't have a motive. There was about 20 people involved. There was 2 different tubing groups. I've got a better article than this. But it tells the survivors here. The 3 of the 4 surviving victims are 22-year-old man from Luck, Wisconsin, a 22-year-old man from Elk River, Minnesota, and a 24-year-old woman from Burnsville, Minnesota. And Mew is some kind of an engineer who designs cooling systems. He did not know these people. His attorney said this was a chance encounter. But let's go to this other article that I found because I think it is allergies for sure. Scott says at our age, we're lucky to wake up. Oh, you couldn't see it? Absolutely. I don't know why. Oh, I have to scroll up. My bad. I'm sorry, you guys. You should be able to see it. That's all there is, though, on this one. You're right, though. It's not moving, is it? Let's try this. Something just totally fell off my desk, and I did not. That was weird. Maligator. What's going on here? I don't know what this. Okay, don't spoil it, guys. Don't spoil it. Why does that look so weird? Russia. It's Russia. Just kidding. Okay, let's check this out. Can you guys see this now? I know your ghosts are coming for me. It's yeah, that's why I got this shirt on. Oh my goodness. All right. This is the article I just read, though. I need to open up the others. The others. So, okay. This is from the Daily Beast. Let's open up that one. The Daily Beast calls him a gun-toting Trump supporter and all this stuff. I'm not paying attention to that shiz. I just want to know what happened. All right. Good old Daily Beast. Cops say gun-loving engineer's account of Tubing death is undercut by videos and his wife. This stabbing incident was caught on video. So I heard in the court hearing today, they said there is video of this incident. There was like 20 people, I guess, splashing around. He's stabbing. I don't know. So this is him. This is Nicolae Mew. Nicolae Mew. Meow. A deadly stabbing at a Bucolic Midwest tubing spot over the weekend. All began with a lost phone, and the suspect turned violent over taunts of being a child molester. Oh, we've got the criminal complaint. Daily Beast. The Daily Beast. Oh, we got to read this. Oh, shiz, you guys. We have to totally read this. All right, so we just saw, I had that first page, right? But look, we've got more. Screw the articles. We're going to have, let it load, and we're going to have everything. This tells the story right here. Dude, I don't know, Scott. Oh, you think he's scary looking there? You should see the other pictures that I found. He's not really scary looking, just, I don't know, you'll see. I'm going to make this bigger. Bigger is better. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that all right. All right, so I want to read through this. I want to know what happened here. And then we will watch his hearing. Because apparently this dude must have some money, because they said that he didn't qualify for a public defender. So his designing of cooling systems must work out pretty good for him. All right, so let's see here. All right, here we go. On July 30th, 2022, at 15:47 hours, St. Croix County Emergency Communications Center started to receive 911 calls about a stabbing that had occurred on the Apple River near the Sunrise Bridge in the town of Somerset, St. Croix County, Wisconsin. Later reports from 911 calls indicate there were potentially 4 to 5 victims with wounds to their mid and upper body. Reports indicated one victim's intestine were hanging from their body. Oh my God. Upon arrival of initial responding deputies, one victim, victim 1, was found without vital signs and with a puncture wound in the upper abdomen near his left breast. Deputies started to perform life-saving measures on victim 1 prior to being passed along to EMS. Victim 1 was later pronounced dead at Lakeview Hospital in Stillwater, Minnesota. Other victims were victim 2. You guys, this is graphic. FYI. FYI. Oh, I cannot with the wording in this. Okay. Other victims were victim 2, who had a slash wound to his abdomen that was exposing internal organs from inside of his body. Victim 3 had a stab wound to his lower left abdomen. Victim 4, who had a laceration on his stomach and a puncture wound to his left upper torso. And victim 5, who had a stab wound to the upper left side of his abdomen. Responding deputies on scene learned of a suspect described as an older male with gray hair, weighing approximately 250 pounds, wearing a chain-style necklace, and described as, quote, Russian-looking.
What?
Information was the suspect had ran back upriver and entered the woods on the western bank of the river. Responding deputies established a perimeter of the area. So this POS took off too. Approximately 1645 hours, St. Croix County Emergency Communication Center received reports from citizen witnesses of a possible sighting of the suspect downriver at the exit point, which is Prospect Park. I, along with multiple other law enforcement officers, converged on Village Park in the village of Somerset. Upon arrival, citizens and other law enforcement officers converged on Village Park in the village of Somerset. Upon arrival, citizens and staff from River's Edge Campground pointed to a male who was wearing a camouflage shirt and shorts. The male did have a gray beard. That male was detained and later confirmed to be person of interest through photographs. The male's name was Nicolae Mew. Date of birth 12/11/59. Nicolae was detained and in the back of a squad car. Nicolae was with a group of friends to include his wife, Sandra D. Mew. I spoke with Sandra, who explained to me she left her home in Prior Lake, Minnesota at 9:30 and arrived with her husband Nicolae at Water's Edge at 10:45. Sandra stated that their vehicle was parked at River's Edge Campground and that none of her group were camping and only floating the river and later leaving. Sandra explained they started floating at River's Edge Campground, started their float at 11:30 to 12 o'clock noon. Sandra explained during their float, the only person that left the group she was with was her husband, Nicolae, who tried to find a member of their party's phone that was lost. Sandra explained that Nicolae donned some scuba gear and was in the water looking for the phone. Sandra explained Nicolae did this in the area on the river near a bridge. Sandra stated she observed a group of guys where Nicolae was looking on their tubes before returning to her briefly, and Nicolae stated he was going back over where he was looking for the phone again. Sandra stated that the second time Nicolae went back to the group of males where he was looking for the phone, Sandra continued by saying that a group of guys got off their tubes and started hitting Nicolae. Sandra said after seeing this, she yelled, and two members of their party, Ariel and Ernesto, started running toward Nicolae and the fight. Sandra stated that all she heard was screaming and that Nicolae, Ariel, and Ernesto came walking back. Sandra stated she did not see what happened. Sandra stated that Ariel and Ernesto were never involved in the confrontation and that by the time they had got to Nicolae, he was already on his way back to Sandra's location. I asked Sandra if Nicolae was known to carry a weapon. Sandra stated Nicolae had a knife in his pocket, but it wasn't very big, and stated that Nicolae told her those guys grabbed it from him. Sandra stated Nicolae told her that they swung the knife at him and that he grabbed it and moved it away. Sandra stated Nicolae only mentioned to her that the other group of people were calling him a pedophile and attacked him. Sandra stated that by the time the police were coming, she observed what she thought was someone getting CPR performed on him. Sandra stated that she didn't think Nicolae was there long enough to harm anyone and estimated for about 5 minutes. Sandra explained that Nicolae's knife was clipped onto his pocket. Sandra rubbed her left thigh while describing where Nicolae's knife was located. Through investigation, interviews of witnesses, and victims indicated that a male was bothering a group of juveniles on their tubes. The group of juveniles were yelling for help from other individuals floating down the river nearby. Witnesses state that a group of people came and stood in between Nicolae and the group of juveniles and told him to leave. Witness statements indicated that Nicolae was being spoke to in a half-moon shape. What? Witness statements indicated that Nicolae was being spoke to in a half-moon shape with a route of egress from the confrontation. What? Hold on. I gotta know if you guys know what the fuck that means. What does that even mean? Hey, Rex. Yeah, he does sound Russian. Nicolae? Right, it makes zero sense. Witness statements indicated that Nicolae was being spoke to in a half-moon shape with a route of egress from the confrontation. Witnesses described Nicolae as punching or slapping a female that was in the group confronting him. Nicolae was then punched by a male and fell in the river. Witnesses then described Nicolae begun stabbing multiple individuals who were near him. Witness statement described the knife used as an approximate 3-inch silver blade with a silver clip handle and folding. This guy's intestines were coming out, and he did that with a 3-inch blade. Located near where the incident took place, back up the stream a short distance along the west bank of the river, was a knife. The knife had a black handle, silver blade, silver clip, and was in the folded closed position. The knife was recovered and turned over as evidence. Also located in the river were multiple tubes tied together. One tube, oh my God. One tube appeared to have a bloody piece of human flesh attached. That tube was secured along with other items believed to be from the victims. On July 31st, 2022, I reviewed a video of the incident that was obtained. Below is a summary of the video captured by Joanne Cockfield. The device the video recorded on indicated 3:44 p.m. yesterday, July 30th, 2022. Oh my gosh. Okay. There's video of this. Me and a drink.
Creepy.
Okay, so the video starts out showing Nicolae, who was shirtless and carrying goggles with a snorkel attached, run up to Joanne's group and grab their tubes, while people in the tubing party are telling Nicolae to, quote, get away. So creepy old Nicolae then stands up and walks around the tubes, appearing to be looking for something. So he was looking for that phone. Nicolae began walking away with back to his tubing party, and the camera shows the Highway 3564 bridge in the background. Nicolae then turns around saying something while pointing at the group. Nicolae again turned to walk back toward the bridge. The camera pans and shows more individuals converging toward Nicolae, yelling for him to walk away. Nicolae then walks toward a female in a black one-piece swimsuit with blonde hair who was walking toward the confrontation and appears to be pointing downriver and telling Nicolae to go away. In the video, you can hear people expressing that, quote, he was looking for little girls. A larger group of individuals converged towards the area. Multiple people were yelling at Nicolae, and it appears at least one person touched his shoulder. From the video, it does appear to show people on 3 sides of Nicolae at different distances. The video and elapsed time shows opportunity for Nicolae to leave the confrontation. Nicolae then appears to be confronted by 2 females, a blonde in a black one-piece swimsuit and another Caucasian female in a 2-piece swimsuit with flowers. While this conversation is happening, in the video, I observe the clip of the knife in Nicolae's right cargo pocket. Nicolae's right hand appears to be touching the knife. Soon after, while in conversation, Nicolae removes the knife from his pocket and opens the knife, exposing the blade. Nicolae then holds the knife down at his right side. The camera pans away from Nicolae. While this is happening, a commotion starts and multiple people converge toward Nicolae. The camera pans back and shows Nicolae falling backward into the water. Nicolae, while laying in the water, is then slapped with an open hand on the left side of his face. While this is happening, Nicolae is holding a small silver-bladed knife with the blade erect. Nicolae appears to be getting back to his feet and is shoved in the back by an individual wearing yellow swimming trunks. Nicolae then begins emerging from the water with the knife in his right hand. While doing so, the individual in the yellow swimming trunks appears to be advancing to shove Nicolae again. While doing so, Nicolae stabs the individual in the yellow swimming trunks in the abdomen while being shoved back in the water on his back. As the video is panning, Nicolae is beginning to stand up still with the knife in his right hand. The video captures briefly a female wearing a two-piece flower swimsuit moving away, holding her left side. Nicolae is standing holding a knife. A male touches Nicolae's back. Nicolae turns around and extends his arm in a stabbing motion. While I observed this, I observed a female in a two-piece flower swimsuit with an open wound on her left side of her torso. Nicolae is then shoved with two hands near his neck. Nicolae then makes another stabbing motion with his right arm. As Nicolae is backing away, I observed his right hand closed around the handle of the knife. The knife was open and appeared to be partly covered in blood, as well as a portion of his right hand. The video begins to pan and shows Nicolae run off by my orientation to the southwest. The video captures a chaotic scene, and I observed wounded individuals laying in the river. As the video is panning around, it appears to briefly capture a male laying in the river, and male matching the description of Nicolae appears to run up to him. Briefly observed is this individual that matches the description of Nicolae leaning over him as the individual is facing him and partly out of the water. There was enough blood in the river that the water turned a red tint in places. The video continues to pan around the entirety of the scene, at times turning towards Jawan, while Jawan questions what is happening. At the end of the video, Jawan can be heard yelling out to victim one. On July 31st, I also reviewed a cell phone video that was provided to investigator Schultz Jr. This video, in the state of my review, was of limited quality due to being captured by an iPhone and sent to an Android device. The length of the video is 21 seconds long. The following is a summary of the events I observed in this video. The video appears to start towards the end of the confrontation. The orientation appears to be from the northeast of the confrontation facing to the southwest. It appears that individuals are fleeing from one person who is standing alone and believed to be Nicolae, with his right arm extended, posturing towards everyone running away. In the foreground, it appears the individual in the yellow swim shorts is laying in the water, holding his abdomen. The male individual that is believed to be Nicolae runs towards the southwest into the river. Nicolae then appears to stop at an individual who was laying in the river. Nicolae's posture during this is bent over the individual. Nicolae appears to be holding him up out of the water by his right arm. The video then pans around and ends. Investigator Dittman met with Owen Lee Peliquin on July 30th. During the interview, Owen described Nicolae as looking through them and described his behavior as disgusting and looking really weird and sketchy. Owen described the knife Nicolae used during the incident as one with a silver blade about 3 inches in length. He described a wooden handle and a large pocket clip and foldable. Owen expressed to investigator Dittman that he observed this knife in Nicolae's pocket. Owen described observing Nicolae with the knife in his hand. Investigator Schultz Jr. spoke with Madison Cohen and Quentin Carlson. While reviewing Investigator Schultz Jr. narrative of the interview, I learned that what started the physical assault was Nicolae punched Madison and the left side of her face. I learned that Nicolae was only punched after he initially struck Madison. Madison was wearing a dark-colored one-piece swimsuit with blonde hair. This narrative is synopsis only. This event is under an active investigation, and further detailed reports are forthcoming. End of report. And then we have an interview with Nicolae today, and I'll read that in a second. I need a drink. This is crazy. Yeah, I don't... And it's not like these kids were armed. It's not like these kids were armed and dangerous. Nicolae. But he's 63 years old. We do have to keep that in mind. You're right, Grandpa. Let's see here. Thanks, Maligator. All right, let's see how long this interview is with Nicolae. So it's 5-6. Wow. Okay. Hang on, you guys. I have to mute. I have to my nose. Hold on a second.
Get your ugly, yellow, no good keister off my property. 1, 2, 10.
Okay, I apologize for that. Hey, Olive Juice. Olive Juice, NGB. Hey, Spot. Hey, Fine Summer's Truth and Natalie from California or Canada. He was born 12/11/69, which makes him 53. I was born in 73. He's 3 years older than me. Snow, that is the satin sheet, and that means not today, satin. Not today, satin. Snow, you cracked me up. Not today, satin. Snow. All right, you guys. I'm going to stay off the camera for a few just while I read. So here is Nick's interview here. Yep, he's saying he was in self-defense mode. I just saw it, so brace yourselves here. On July 30th, 2022, oh my God, fruit fly. Or drain fly, whatever they are, dung flies, nastiness. I went to the St. Croix County Jail to attempt an interview with Nicolae Nick Mew. I met with him in the interrogation room of the jail and obtained his information. Nick told me that he worked at Ritchie Engineering as a mechanical engineer and that he had 2 bachelor's degrees, one in engineering and one in mathematics. Nick told me he's never been in trouble with the law before. I read Nick his rights per Miranda, and he asked me when he would be assigned an attorney, and I told him probably Monday. I continued reading the rights form, and Nick told me he'd like to consult with attorney at some point. Nick signed the rights form, as I did, and I gave him the yellow copy of the form. So if he's a mechanical engineer, he makes pretty good money. I told Nick that I wanted to ask him questions about his day today, and he could stop the questioning at any time. Nick told me, quote, it was self-defense. Nick told me there were a lot of people that came on to him that ultimately, quote, produced 2 weapons. Nick said that the people hit him and were on top of him and said, quote, I don't remember anything after that. Nick said the only thing he remembered after that was that he ran away to his group. Nick said that he recalled that there were people from his group coming toward him to see what was going on. Nick said that when his group asked him what was going on, he told them nothing. Nick told me that he was, quote, so fearful for his safety and wasn't sure what the people on the river were going to do to him. Nick told me that he'd never been in a situation like this before where a group of people produced weapons and called him a child molester. Nick told me that as the group was calling him a child molester, he remembered telling the group that if he was a child molester and they were children, they shouldn't be drinking alcohol. Nick said that one of the group of individuals took his snorkel from him and threw it in the river. Nick recalled that one person grabbed his swim trunks and tried to pull his trunks down. Nick said he grabbed onto the kid that tried pulling his shorts down and saw that he, the kid, had a knife on him. Nick also said that he saw someone had a longer knife that looked like a kitchen knife. Nick told me he didn't know what happened to either knife, but when the one kid attacked him, he took that knife from the individual. Nick described the knife he took as a, quote, smaller knife. I asked Nick how he even became in contact with this group of individuals. And Nick said that Ariel lost his phone, but the phone had been inside a floater. One of the bags provided to tubers to prevent valuables from sinking. Nick said he was helping Ariel look for the phone. Nick said he had his snorkel gear, and while looking for the group, asked if they'd found a phone. And the group got off their tubes and came at me and were calling him names. Nick said that the group of people were insulting him for being in the water with snorkel gear. Nick said he told the group that all he wanted to know was if they'd found a phone, as he believed they'd located something. Nick said the individuals came at him, grabbed his snorkel and goggles, and threw them in the river. Nick told me that the water was running so fast, the snorkel and goggles floated away. Nick said by that time, another group of individuals, mostly female, had approached the area from the other side of the river. Nick said that group of people were also yelling about him being a, quote, child molester. Nick said he didn't know what happened other than, quote, they attacked me and, quote, I was in self-defense mode. Nick said after that he went over to his group of people. Nick said his group asked him what happened, but he wouldn't tell them. Nick told me he was in shock and wouldn't tell anyone what happened. Nick said that someone from his group motioned to the river where a large group of people have gathered and made a comment about that group of people appearing to be arguing. I provided Nick a piece of paper and pen and asked if he could map out for me where he was on the river when the incident took place. Nick began to map a diagram, not to scale. Nick estimated his group was about 100 feet upriver from the other 2 groups of people. Nick said there were actually 2 groups of people that attacked him, one on each side of the river. Nick explained that he'd been snorkeling back and forth between the 2 groups looking for the cell phone. Nick said he heard someone from one of the groups say something that led Nick to believe they'd found something. Nick said that when he asked about it, the first group started calling him names and attacking him. Nick said that members of the group hit and pushed him. Nick recalled that there was a female that came up behind him and hit him twice in the back of the head. Nick said that he remembered someone grabbing the goggles right off his face and throwing them into the river. Nick described the goggles as being clear and the snorkel as being white. I told Nick that I'd been informed by other investigators that the goggles and snorkel had been recovered. I asked Nick if it seemed as though the two groups were together, and he said yes, he believes so. Nick told me that he'd feared for his life. Nick said that when the group started hitting him and two of the individuals pointed a smaller knife at him, quote, I thought that was for me, Nick said. Quote, luckily, I took it from one of the young kids. I asked Nick what he did with the knife, and he said, I don't even know. I asked Nick if the knife made contact with someone, and he said he didn't remember. Nick said that the group of people was, quote, so close to him. Nick told me that one kid had the smaller knife in his hand. So Nick said he grabbed the individual's arm, twisted it, and I poked him with his own hand. Nick said he took the knife from the individual who'd been in possession of it and then started swinging it. Nick told me he was swinging the knife all around him because, quote, I wanted out. Nick said people were coming at him, punching him, hitting him, and circling around him. Nick said that the group was really close to him and pushing him in the river. Nick said he didn't know what, if anything, the knife came in contact with. Nick said he didn't know what happened to the other larger knife that someone had brandished. Nick said that immediately after it happened, he started running back across the river to his group. Nick said that when his group started asking him what happened, he wouldn't tell them. Nick said he didn't want to tell his group what had happened because he didn't want anyone roused up. Nick said he was worried that his group would want to confront the kids that attacked him. Nick said that the group of individuals who attacked him were, quote, too drunk and, quote, too set on going after people. Nick said during the attack, his group had no idea what was going on, other than at one point Ernesto came up to him and asked if he'd found the cell phone. Nick said he told Ernesto that he believed the group had found something, but they wouldn't tell him what it was. Nick said that Ernesto asked him if he was okay, but Nick didn't want to talk about it. Nick said that there were some women in his group who had heard that there'd been something going on with the two groups on the river, so they called 911. I asked Nick if he'd seen what was going on with the women. When the women decided to call 911, he said no. I asked Nick if he had a knife with him today, and he said no, absolutely no. Nick said he'd had one earlier in the day, and when he and Sandy arrived at the river's edge, he used it to cut the string that held the tubes together. Nick said he wasn't sure what he'd done with the knife, but believed he gave it to one of the people or left it in his vehicle. Nick thought it could also have been inside one of the bags that were in the Jeep. Nick explained that he'd brought tow ratchet straps with because he didn't want to pay for string to secure tubes together. Nick said once he learned the string was free, he put the bag of straps back in his vehicle, and perhaps he'd put the knife in the bag with the straps. I asked Nick if he had any cuts or marks on his body from being attacked. Nick said Amy had told him he was bleeding from his left ear. Nick told me he washed his left ear in the river and didn't think it was bleeding anymore after that. Nick said he never saw any blood and didn't know why he'd been bleeding from his ear. Nick told me that he never told his group what happened and said, quote, everything happened so fast. Nick said he didn't know why the group attacked him. Nick told me he didn't know why the group took his snorkel or tried to pull his pants down and said, quote, I don't know why they were being so mean. Nick also asked, quote, why did they want to scare me with a knife? Nick reiterated that he feared for his life when he was under attack. Nick said afterward he was extremely shocked and couldn't talk to anyone. Nick said he didn't know how this happened or how he even got away from them. Nick said that he was struck on his back and one female smacked him on his right ear. Nick told me he really couldn't see what the group was doing to him because he was tripping over rocks in the river. Nick said he was in fear for his life. Nick said he was still fearful that the group would find out who he was, and he was afraid the group was going to look for or do something to Sandy. Nick said he drank a lot of beer today. However, I couldn't smell any odor of intoxicants coming from his person. Nick said he didn't drink hard alcohol since his quadruple bypass a year and a half ago. Nick said part of the reason he was so afraid of the group that attacked him was because he wasn't in the best of health. Nick showed me a scar on his left wrist from where a piece of vein was removed for the heart valve replacement. Nick told me as a result of his heart condition, he took 5 meds in the evening. I told Nick I would contact Sandy and make arrangements to get the meds delivered to the jail. I asked Nick if he used his cell phone at all today, and he said he took a few pictures but didn't do anything with them. Nick said he had not used his phone before or after the incident. I showed Nick the image that had been disseminated, and he confirmed that it was him. I asked Nick what was happening at the time the image was taken, and he said, quote, "They were fighting me," and that both boys had pointed knives at him. Nick said he didn't notice anyone taking his photo and described himself as very, very scared. Nick said he didn't know what was going to happen next. Nick said it all started when people from both groups kept calling him a, quote, child molester and wanted to beat him up. Nick said the individuals in the groups did not look old enough to legally consume alcohol. Nick repeated that he'd taken the knife from one of the individuals and waved it at the group around him. Nick said he wasn't sure if he struck the female that hit him twice or not. I asked Nick if he would consent to providing me a DNA sample, and he asked if he should wait and ask a lawyer. I told Nick that a colleague of mine was in the process of applying for a search warrant, so I would obtain his DNA either by consent or by warrant. Nick consented to providing a DNA sample. I told Nick I would like a nurse to examine his body for injuries and look at his ears, since he'd reported being struck and possibly bleeding. Nick wondered if he should consult with an attorney. I told him again that I had a colleague in the process of applying for a search warrant for the examination of his body, and Nick consented to an examination of his body. Nick told me that after the women in his group called 911, they waited there a long time. Nick said he saw law enforcement on the other side of the river. Nick said when he got back to his group, it looked like a bunch of people from the two groups were fighting with one another. Nick said that he wanted to wait there in the event that police needed to talk to him about what happened with the two groups. Nick said that he eventually decided to leave and head back down the river. Nick stated again that he was quiet on the way down the river and didn't know what to say. Nick said he'd just gotten his, quote, ass kicked by a bunch of kids on the river. So what was he supposed to say? Nick said he didn't know what happened, and I asked if I could tell him. I told Nick that 4 individuals sustained injuries and 1 person died. Nick said, quote, "Oh no," and asked if the individuals sustained injuries because they were fighting with one another, and I said I didn't know. Nick then put his head in his hands and said, "Oh my God." Nick said his whole life was, quote, down the tubes. Nick said he was sorry for how this ended up. I put on rubber gloves and removed 2 swabs from the sealed, sterile packaging. I rubbed the swabs along Nick's lower gum line and inner cheeks. I put the swabs into a white cardboard box with the case number and Nick's name on it. I placed the box in a paper evidence bag with Nick's name on it and sealed it in front of him. I later logged them into evidence at the sheriff's office. I also put Nick's name on the diagram he drew and put the case number on it. I left the interview room and notified jail staff that Nick needed to use the restroom. I contacted the SART nurse who had been dispatched for the physical exam and briefed her on the situation. When she arrived in the jail escorted Nick to the booking area. I asked Nick again if he consented to the exam, and he said he did. Jail staff and the nurse brought Nick into the nurse's office for the exam. I went back to the sheriff's office to log the items I'd collected. At approximately 22:30 hours, I went back to the jail and collected the SART kit and paperwork from Ashley Price, RN. I placed the kit into the evidence at the sheriff's office. I also contacted Investigator Dittman, who was in Minnesota conducting interviews. I asked Investigator Dittman to go to the Mew residence and speak with Sandy about getting Nick's medications. I also told Investigator Dittman that Nick had reported that he left the knife in the Jeep after he cut the string on the tubes, and asked that he, Investigator Dittman, check the vehicle for the knife. I then called Sandy and let her know that Investigator Dittman would be stopping by the house for Nick's medications and to look for the knife. On July 31st, I was notified that Nick wanted to speak to an investigator. I went to the jail, and Nick told me that he was in pain in the abdomen and lower back from being attacked on the river. Nick told me that he received Tylenol for the pain, but wanted me to document it. I have no further information at this time. This case remains under investigation. This is on information and belief of the undersigned complainant based on information given to him or her by the following reliable informants: Joanne Cockfield, citizen witness, and Deputy Mitchell Shappy and Lieutenant Brandy Hart of the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office. Signed and sworn on 8/1, Sergeant Johnson. So let me come back over to the chat room and see what you guys are thinking about this case. Carrie, I thought the same thing. I was like, down the tubes. No pun intended. I don't know. This is just, I mean, they saw the knife in the video. And he's like, oh, these kids had the knife, blah, blah, blah. So he is being held on $1 million bond, you guys. And he's lived in Prior Lake for 11 years. So he's not like a mover arounder. But let's watch the hearing that took place today, shall we? With Mr. Mew appearing. And here we go on that. Wait. J is for J. Ah, you can't see it, can you? Hold on. Oh my gosh, I have 2 fruit flies around me. I'm going to lose my mind. It is really weird. But why were they calling him a pedo, you guys? Like, why? Do you think because he was snorkeling back and forth, they were drunk, being idiots, and like, oh, he's looking at the girls under the water like he's a pedophile, like being morons like that? It is cash only. Yep. You're right about that, night nurse. Cash only bond. And the prosecutor asked for $50,000 and the judge was like, oh, fuck no, this dude's getting $1 million. That's pretty much how it went down. He says he doesn't remember doing it. So there's like, he's not admitting anything, but he sure did give a lot of details and he might regret that later. I don't know. It's pretty detailed. No evidence the kids were drinking. Well, they'll be able to find out. Toxicology will provide those answers. J is for Justice Podcast.
Jay, I like your podcasts.
Roberta. All right, can you hear me downstairs okay?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can, Your Honor.
All right. We're about to go. All right, this is State of Wisconsin versus Nicolae. Is it pronounced Miu? Miu. 2022 CF 518. Mr. Anderson and Ms. Ellenwood appear for the state. Mr. Harrelson is present. Mr. Miu appears by video from the St. Croix County Jail. Before we take up the initial appearance, I just want to address a few things. First, we have a packed courtroom. All of you are welcome today. I do have a few requests. First, make sure your cell phones are turned off or are on silent. Please remain silent and seated if you are in a chair. during these proceedings. Once this case is concluded, we will
There he
recess
is.
to allow those of you to exit who do not wish to participate in the other hearings. Earlier today, I signed a media order. Credentialed media may photograph and record today's hearing. The general public, however, may not photograph or video. That means no cell phone photography, no photography of any kind. At the victims' requests, no photography of the victims who are seated in the gallery. That means no shots, video, or still of the gallery area. I have permitted a number of people to appear by Zoom, who I understand represent victim interests. You are visible to the entire courtroom. If you do not wish to be seen or photographed, you may cover your camera or disconnect it. You'll still be able to see and hear us in the courtroom. But please know that you are visible to everybody who is seated in the courtroom. For you at public expense, did you meet with the public defender today? Hear me? You may cover your camera or disconnect it. You'll still be able to see and hear us in the courtroom.
No prior
please
record.
know that you are visible to everybody who is seated in the courtroom.
Yes, he does look like night court guy.
Let's take up the initial appearance. Mr. Miyu, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a copy of the criminal complaint?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so one person died, 4 people were injured. So he's got 5 charges, no priors. He lives in Prior Lake, but he's got no priors. I don't know what else. One person died, a 17-year-old guy.
Is your address correct?
Yes, sir.
Is your date of birth listed correctly on the complaint?
Yes, sir.
You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one may be appointed for you at public expense. Did you meet with the public defender today?
Yes.
Does he qualify?
Yes.
He does not. Does not qualify? Does not. The public defender tells me, Mr. Miyu, that you do not qualify for public defender representation. If you think you still may want a lawyer at public expense, you may qualify for a court-appointed attorney. It's a lot like a public defender, but you repay the county at a prescribed rate. You are certainly free to hire an attorney on your own. You may represent yourself if I am comfortable and believe that you are capable of doing so. Is it okay if the public defender helps you at least for today's hearing?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Harrelson, did you go over the complaint?
Not with Mr. Miyu. I received it about 10 minutes before 1 o'clock.
Mr. Miyu, I'm going to read off the charges so that you're aware of what you've been accused of doing. In count 1, you've been charged with first-degree intentional homicide. That is a Class A felony. Upon conviction, you face a sentence of life imprisonment. In counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, you are charged with attempted first-degree intentional homicide. Those counts involve Class B felonies. Upon conviction, you would serve a maximum term of imprisonment not to exceed 60 years. Do you understand the charges and the maximum possible penalties?
Yes,
No,
sir.
this
Further
new
reading.
case, guys.
Let's take up bond. What is the state's recommendation?
Thank you, Your Honor. The state is requesting a $500,000 cash bond. No contact with the victims listed in counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. Absolute sobriety and no use or possession of a dangerous weapon. We are asking that the court would also order a no contact with victim 1 as named in the complaint family. As the court is aware, victim 1 is now deceased. The state did file an identification key with the criminal complaint that we would ask be filed with the bail sheet but kept under seal. As the court is aware, under 969.01 sub 4, considerations in setting bail, Mr. Miyu apparently has no criminal record. He does not reside here in St. Croix County. It appears from my research that he has lived in Minnesota for quite some time, has no contacts or relations here in St. Croix County. It appears that he has a job that would consider him to be known to have assets. And given the seriousness of these offenses, Judge, obviously count one, facing a life.
Yes, Maligator. His house is worth $500,000. So, yeah, this guy doesn't qualify for court-appointed attorney or public defender because he's got assets.
Time in imprisonment, and counts 2 through 5 also carrying significant prison time as well as high fines. We are asking the court would set that high cash bond to ensure Mr. Mew's return to court. The other considerations are based on the allegations in the complaint. As it alleges, there is video, partial video, I will say, of this attack on these victims. It does appear to be violent in nature. For those reasons, we are asking for those conditions. Thank you.
Mr. Harrelson.
So, Your Honor, Mr. Mew does own his residence. So he has some permanent ties to the Prior Lake area where he lives with his wife. He is the sole provider for their household. He's lived 11 years at this last address, but in the Twin Cities since 1993. He does have bachelor's of science degrees both in mechanical engineering and in mathematics. He's an engineer, working for Ritchie Engineering as a mechanical engineer and a tech reporter. He's responsible for designing residential, commercial, and automotive ventilation and cooling systems. He has quite a lot of education and practical on-the-job experience. He has a very stable job with Ritchie Engineering where he's been employed for the last 16 years. He has no objection, of course, to the state's request for no contact with the victims or the family of the victim in count number 1. Although, judging from the facts as alleged in the complaint, I have no reason to believe that he knows who they are or anything about them. This appears to have been a completely chance encounter on the river. A very unfortunate one, but he doesn't seem to have had any prior knowledge of who these individuals are, so I just ask that, remaining under seal, the appropriate contact information would be provided to him so that he knows who not to reach out to. He has no objection to no possession of dangerous weapons, although I would request that a definition be provided to him. The statutory definition, off the top of my head, I don't remember what section it is where this term dangerous weapons is defined, but I would like a definition, preferably the one from the statutes, so that he knows what it is he can and cannot possess. No objection to the absolute sobriety requested. As to the $500,000 cash, I would like to remind the court that the primary purpose of cash in setting bail is to ensure his return to court. There are, of course, a number of alternatives that the state can use, that the court can order, alternatives to cash, which can serve the same purpose. And in fact, some of those alternatives I would propose offer a greater assurance of return to court. So Mr. Mew, I've spoken with him, would not object to an ankle bracelet with GPS monitoring. Being as old as he is and no criminal history that is known, I don't see any reason to make the geographic restriction tiny, but I would ask that he be given an ankle bracelet in lieu of a high amount of cash. As to the cash, I understand why some cash is necessary to ensure that he has an interest in returning to the court. My request would be for $50,000 cash. As Your Honor is aware, cash bail in this state is not handled by percentages and bail bondsmen, but he would have to come up with that in cash, and that can be difficult for anyone, even an engineer. Now, I'm going to I would suggest to him that he complete the court's application for a court-appointed attorney, so Your Honor will have some better understanding of his finances, but given the severity of the charge, I'm not entirely certain he'll be able to hire or retain his own attorney because I have a feeling that that's going to be quite costly. So my request is $50,000 cash. Now, I would point again to the facts as alleged in the complaint that this appears to have been an unanticipated random encounter on the river. Mr. Mew was, according to the allegations, there with his wife and some friends. They were floating down the river, and he was momentarily separated from them for the purpose of looking for a lost cell phone when he and the victims in this case encountered one another. The court, I'm sure, has read the facts of the complaint. This is not a situation where there's been premeditation for months or weeks or former contact with the victims or some prior grudge that led Mr. Mew to devise a plan for
Yes, we'll Google Earth it when this is done.
Killing or injuring any of them. This is a case where something went wrong in the encounter on the river and escalated, resulting in some unfortunate, very unfortunate consequences. But Mr. Mew, I don't think the facts of the complaint provide any reason to believe that he will not return to court. I think $50,000 cash and an ankle bracelet with GPS monitoring is sufficient. I understand if the court wants to have him report to the Justice Support Center once a week by telephone call to verify his residence and his current employment. I understand the severity of the charges, but I think that the allegations, the way that they are in the complaint, law enforcement will have to do a lot of investigation and sorting out in this matter, but there are apparently two sides to the story, which are both presented in the complaint. In light of those and Mr. Mew's stability of employment and residence, family, I'm asking for $50,000 cash with the ankle bracelet.
You mentioned GPS bracelet. What geographic restriction do you propose?
I don't have any information from him that he's required to travel for work, but I also don't know the location of Ritchie Engineering. My request would be that he be ordered to remain within the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Ms. Ellenwood, any comment on the GPS offer?
Well, Judge, the victims, some do reside in Minnesota, and so that would be, I think, too broad of a spectrum to say you can go to the state of Minnesota when the victims are there. Perhaps if the court were to order a GPS restriction, it could be just for work and home.
There's no objection to ordering that he remain outside of some identified perimeter from whatever address it is, but he'll need to know where to stay away from.
All right, I am going to first say a few things. These are things that I've taken into consideration. One, obviously, is the nature of the alleged crimes. They're serious in nature. That is an understatement. We're dealing with a first-degree intentional homicide. It carries a maximum penalty of life in prison. We have 5 victims, one of whom is deceased. 4 others allegedly have been seriously injured. I'm unclear about what their prognosis is, but from what I've read, I can conclude safely that this incident resulted in serious injuries to them. Mr. Mew is not a resident of Wisconsin. He's not a resident of our county. No meaningful ties to our community have been identified other than the crime itself. He has no criminal history that anyone is aware of. He does have assets. Sounds like it consists largely of a home, perhaps other assets too. He's lived in Prior Lake since roughly 1993, from what I understand. We're dealing with a violent crime, and that is concerning. The safety of the public also factors into my decision. So I think the following bail is reasonable and appropriate given all of those circumstances. First, I find that cash.
No, the prosecutor asked for $500,000, and then the lawyer, his lawyer that's sitting in right now, asked for 50. But you're going to hear the judge do neither one of those. Watch.
Is necessary to assure Mr. Miyu's return to court, given the serious nature of these offenses, the maximum penalties that he faces, along with the absence of any ties. Cash is warranted. In my judgment, $1 million is an appropriate amount. I think that is warranted given the fact that we have 5 victims with unknown prognosis, with the exception of one who regretfully has been fatally injured. Conditions of bond include absolute sobriety. That may be verified through testing through the Justice Services Department on an ankle or a remote testing device. I'd like to have testing set at least 4 times per day. Mr. Miyu will not possess any dangerous weapons. Dangerous weapons are or include those identified in statute. We'll have that spelled out so that there are not any misunderstandings. The court will also order GPS monitoring. He is restricted from 1/2 mile from each of the victims' homes. He'll have no contact with any of the victims and victim one's family. Were there any conditions that I missed?
No, Your Honor.
All right. We'll go off the record. We'll have the matter scheduled for a preliminary hearing.
Thanks for becoming a member, Roxana.
Yeah, considering. I wonder if we could have an attorney status conference prior to the preliminary hearing to see whether he's retained someone or needs a court-appointed attorney, because although I would like to, it seems like a good idea for his attorney to make the judgment about whether or not to waive the speediness of the preliminary hearing.
There was somebody in a hospital bed on Zoom.
That's a good idea. Let's go off and schedule. Can we do the preliminary hearing August 12, 10 o'clock?
August 12, what time?
10?
10.
That works.
August 12th, 10 a.m.
Let me just look at the law enforcement calendar, Judge.
I think they make it later.
That should be fine, thank you.
Okay. So August 12 at 10 for preliminary hearing.
10 a.m. Central.
And then let's check in to find out the status of counsel. How about this Friday? Uh, 1:45 right after intake.
Who's whispering?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, back on. We'll have the matter scheduled for a preliminary hearing on August 12 at 10 o'clock. I'll have it set for a status conference on August 5 at 1:45. The purpose of the status conference will be to see whether or not counsel has been appointed or retained. Mr. Miyu, if you think you are interested in the court-appointed attorney, please fill out the application immediately. That way we can review your eligibility and find a qualified attorney to take your case.
The fruit flies.
You may retain counsel on your own if you prefer, and we'll talk about which direction you plan to go on August 5 at 1:45. If you do bail out, you must be present for all future court hearings. Failure to appear may result in a warrant for your arrest. Mr. Harrelson.
Judge, just to correct the record on one point, I think you mentioned he had been resident at Prior Lake since 1993. What I meant to say was he had been there for the last 11 years, but in the Twin Cities metro area since 1993.
Okay, I misheard you. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Ellenwood?
No, thank you.
All right, that's all. We stand in recess. Thank you.
Well, I think you guys, we have to wait for more evidence to come out before we get all worked up. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know everything. We haven't heard from the witnesses or anything like that. But check this out. I did find a video where they talked to a witness. Yeah, that judge was refreshing. He's like, nope, $1 million. Sorry about it. But man, he does look like that night court judge. You guys are funny. Everybody looks like somebody these days. Have you guys noticed that? Do you find yourselves doing that a lot? Like, oh my gosh, that looks like so-and-so, or that looks like so-and-so. I do it all the time. Ask my team. Constantly. It's annoying. Are we going to have an ad? It's going to blow our eardrums out. Let's see. Come on. Here we go.
River, and tonight investigators are trying to figure out why. Police say a 52-year-old man from Prior Lake stabbed several people while tubing Saturday afternoon, killing a 17-year-old boy from Stillwater.
4 others critically injured in this. Fox 9's Babs Santos is live with what we know so far. Babs?
Babs.
Well, they were rushed here last night, 2 by air and 2 by ambulance. The sheriff saying it had been up to 15 years since the last stabbing in their small community of Somerset, Wisconsin.
All we heard was call 911, call 911.
Mark Olson and his family were part of a chaotic scene on the water in Somerset, Wisconsin this weekend. And now a 52-year-old Prior Lake man is in the St. Croix County Jail. Law enforcement saying he went on a stabbing spree, targeting tubers on the Apple River, wounding 5 and killing 1 of them, a 17-year-old Stillwater boy, before taking off on foot.
It was just scary because we didn't know where that person was or what he was doing.
Olson and his group were just a few minutes away from the attack. They came upon the victims laying out on the shoreline, surrounded by 15 to 20 people trying to help them.
Scrambling, and then there's these kids that were with the one that passed away, like, how could this happen? How could this happen? And it was just very traumatic.
The 4 victims that survived are now at Regents Hospital with a number of stab wounds throughout the torso and chest. A 22-year-old Elk River man, 20-year-old and 22-year-old Luck, Wisconsin men, and a 24-year-old Burnsville woman, all in stable condition, but their injuries range from serious to critical.
The first one they were given CPR to, and the next one they're just telling them, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Off the water,
he was inconsolable.
Kat Fenton says she helped the father of one of the victims who came speeding towards her home nearby.
When I saw blood on his shirt and he was crying, I got in and I touched his arm and I just said, I'll get you through this. I'll show you where you need to go.
An hour later, at the end of the river run, Mark Olson's family watched the arrest of this 52-year-old suspect shooting this video.
And then all of a sudden they took his hat off and then they hauled him away. And he was calm as can be.
Today in a statement, River's Edge Tubing wrote, yesterday was a difficult and tragic day on the river. The River's Edge family is saddened by this senseless act, and our hearts go out to those affected and their families and friends. Reporting live, Babs Santos, Fox 9.
Jeez. Here's another victim who's in the hospital. This must be the girl in the black swimsuit with blonde hair. One of the 5 people stabbed by a knife. Can you guys see this? Hang on, let me take this slideshow down. I don't know why her photo is so large. Hold on. But it appears that only one female was one of the victims, that it was one female. All right. So I don't know what the heck. Like, were these kids like heckling this guy and he flipped out? All right, so here's that picture. It's really big and pixelated, but let's read through this. One of the 5 people stabbed by a knife-wielding man in the Apple River in Somerset, Wisconsin on Saturday has identified herself as Riley Madison, a 24-year-old from Burnsville. She was with a group of people tubing on the popular river when a 52-year-old Prior Lake man began stabbing people, including a 17-year-old boy from Stillwater who died. Madison and 3 others were taken to Regions Hospital in St. Paul, where she remains in recovery Monday. The identities of the others have not been released, though authorities said Sunday that all 4 are in stable condition. Madison wrote on Facebook that, a quote, few friends and her were stabbed by, quote, a random elderly man, elaborating further about the attack on her GoFundMe campaign. She said, some friends and I were tubing when we came across a group who were asking for our help. My friends and I went over to see what was going on, and there was an older man there being inappropriate and was asked to leave but wouldn't. The older man ended up having a knife and stabbed a few friends of mine and myself included, she wrote. Asked if she knows why the man stabbed her, she replied, I do not. Madison launched a GoFundMe with hopes of lessening the financial burden she faces after recently losing her job and now being unable to work while she recovers from her injuries. A 17-year-old boy who was killed in the attack was identified by Care 11 as Isaac Schumann of Stillwater, Minnesota. Deputies arrived at the scene, located 100 to 200 yards from the Apple River Bridge in Somerset, just after 3:45 Saturday. Once there, they witnessed bystanders and tubers helping provide medical aid to the victims. And then down here it says, if anyone has video of this incident prior to or during the event, please contact investigator John Schultz at 715-381-4319 or by email at john.schultzjr@sccwi.gov. It's not, I was going to say, do you guys think that this guy was being a creep town dude and making comments? This is the boy that passed right here. That's him and his family, and then that's the boy. I'm sorry, but I hate to say it, but a lot of these older men are creep town dudes and make inappropriate comments. And she said he was being inappropriate. So what was he doing? Yeah, he was slapping girls. I don't know. This is going to be interesting. Yeah, she did slap the guy. But this kid is the 17-year-old who died. And there's all the tubes and where they rendered aid. This is on the side of the river here. Hold on, let me make this bigger. They're going to get so many videos and witnesses. I mean, this is brand new. So this just happened Saturday. Their work is just beginning because there was so many people there. They're going to have lots of videos and pictures and things to go through. I think anyways. Why did he have snorkel gear? It doesn't even look deep enough to snorkel. And I know what these rivers are like. We have them in Michigan and people go and they pee and they have sex and they get infections and everything else in these waters, and it's gross. He's saying that these boys had the knife, that he didn't have his own knife. But then in the affidavit, it said that they saw him with his hand on his own knife. So he's lying. He's lying. There probably are TikToks. It's not deep enough for snorkeling. Hey, Heidi Moon, I saw you were here way earlier and said you used to go there back in the day. Thanks for coming back and listening. Thanks for being here, Heidi. But this is the river. We're going to Google Earth it in just a second. I want to thank Malligator for all the info while we've been chatting here, filling in those gaps like a champ. Thank you, Mal. Okay, that gives a better view of the water versus where they were rendering aid. Did he I guess we would have to wait and see like what his friend Ariel says about his phone. Like all these statements from. Oh yeah, Tracy, can you imagine being disemboweled in that water? I mean, that kid passed away, but still. The kids that got stabbed, the one girl was holding her abdomen, and that water is just getting in that wound. Ugh. They said they could see their internal organs. I mean, he wasn't just going, like, get away from me. This mofo was like stabbing to get their internal organs visible. That's beyond self-defense, in my opinion. That he was trying to kill. Visible internal organs with a 3-inch blade. Do you know what force he had to use? I mean, it's not like he was being killed. Why would he react so aggressively like that? Like, just go away. Or go get a couple of your buddies and have them look for their own phone. I think there's more to this. I think this guy was making inappropriate comments to these girls, and I think it'll come out. I mean, think about it. A 3-inch blade is like that. Like that. And he was able to do that and expose their internal organs. Like what? Hello, Miss Carrie. Hi, Jerry. Carrie and Jerry are so very. Yeah, he had some pent-up anger or something, you guys, because for him to go off that quickly, like someone just, Summer's Truth just said, for him to go off that quickly, either that or he just did not like being called a pedo and called out on inappropriate behavior. I want to know what his inappropriate behavior was. I really do. Because you know what? I'm not even trying to be like judgmental towards men or anything. But man, over the past year, I have noticed so much with pedos and inappropriate behavior and comments and, everything where young girls are being exploited. And if that's what it ends up being, I don't know what to think, because men need to know too that they can't be creepy to girls that are in their teens, right? I mean, there's a lot to both sides if what the victim claims is true. Right. And then he doesn't even tell anybody what he did. How can you just walk away from that? How could they drown him? All right, we are going to Google Earth. or Google map this river. Yeah, I mean, if he was making comments and these guys were like, get away, pedo. I mean, I could see it with 17-year-olds. Right. The report said that, but also a girl who got stabbed said he was being inappropriate. So I want to know more about that. Right. Snorkel gear, and you're drinking and hanging out with your teenage friends, and this old man comes up. I mean, she said he was elderly. That just goes to show how 17-year-olds view 50-year-olds. Elderly. She said elderly, you guys. Ugh.
Hi, Jennifer.
Okay, so here's the Apple River. Let's zoom in. Where would that bridge be? So it would be where they... Ooh, what's venomous dino? I'm just not sure what part of this river they were on. I mean, could be anywhere, but I thought it was towards the where they end. So I'm just following it. If you guys see a bridge, holler, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Okay, so then it separates and goes this way. What if you go that way? Oh, you end up in the woods. So what's this mean? I wonder if I can bring my little guy down. Nope. Go south. Whoa, this is a big river. Oh, okay, here's the boat landing. Right here. Is this where we're going to go? We can't even walk down anywhere. Oh, we're here in the winter time. Looks cozy. This doesn't tell me anything. I'm just trying to see where you get on this godforsaken river. For God's sakes, it goes forever and ever and ever. Tracy said, go south. Can you give me like a landmark? Is it down this way, like by Russell's Sport and Bike? Or is it up the other way? Because I don't know. But let's look at these pictures here. Let's see what people shared. Oh, near Somerset? Oh, people go swimming there, Snow, because they get drunk. They tube. They float in their tubes. They drink. Just like this. And they just do it all day. They just float from one end to the other and party. Now, mind you, these people are not involved. These are just randoms on Google Images. But it gives you an idea of what this river looks like. This is actually July 2022. July 2022. Look how nasty. Look at all the like gunk and seaweed and shit. Nasty. Some chemical plant there probably releases whatever they release into that water. Partying. There's that bridge. This was July 2022. Or no. 2020. July of 2020. All right, let's see Somerset. Where is Somerset? The Somerset collection. Okay, here's Somerset. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Cousin Trace. River's Edge, Apple River tubing and camping. Here we go. Oh, I think this might be the bridge, right? Hold on. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, let's go up here. So apparently this friend of his name is Ariel, he says, lost his phone, and this dude must have went back to look for it, and it was supposedly in a floater. Oh my God, this image is from '08. Did you see that truck? But it was in a floating bag, and he may have went back to look for it. Because here is the river, and then here's the where you rent the tubes and stuff. And here's the campsite. Let's go check. I mean, this is typical what teens, early 20s would do, you know? So this is just the little area here. It's pretty basic. Just people having a good time on a Saturday, and it turns into this. Now, I'm not a big fan of leeches and gunk and my feet touching gunk. I'm not really a fan of that. I mean, let's just see what. Oh, the bathing suits that girls are wearing now. Oh my gosh, I know. Trust me, I'm in Florida. I see it. These teenagers, you can see their full ass. Like, surprised you can't see their butthole. It's so skimpy. While, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't want my teen to wear bottoms like that. Just because I know how men are. I know how they are. They can't help themselves, and it's scary. And I'm not trying to generalize, but the truth is the truth. It looks, what'd you say, Kung Fu? It looks like you could get bit. Yeah, they're slimy. Oh my gosh, Breckenridge, Colorado. I bet it is beautiful, Cousin Tracy. You used to wear your shoes? Yeah, I don't blame you. We have tons of rivers in Michigan like this too. Riverdale Flowage. That sounds clean. Apple River Kayak. Let's see what that looks like. Right, Heidi Moon, you just got to find those spots, right, that have the age-appropriate people that you want to be around. Look how old these images. Oh, 2020. Street View, 2008. Desolate. There's nothing there. Nothing there, folks. But at any rate, I hope that answers a lot of the questions that you guys may have had about the area. I'm going to zoom out, actually, and show you guys where in Wisconsin. You do have to be careful, Pamela. And I tell my daughter that too. My daughter's 21. And I'm like, I know that you shouldn't have to worry about it. But unfortunately, you do have to worry about it. And you have to be mindful of men. I mean, and you know what made me really sad, you guys? And I'm going to share this with you because it made me so sad. She said, men make me feel so unsafe. It broke my heart. It broke my heart that my daughter has that view of men, and I don't want her to have that view. I don't have that view. And it's been her experiences that have molded that view. And there's something wrong here that she feels that way. So we can talk about this at another time, but this will conclude our Apple River stabber. And we are definitely going to follow this case. Again, here in Wisconsin, it's over here on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And we'll be watching for this dude's next hearing on the 12th. Tiffany Lee, hey. See who else has joined us while I was flapping my yap. Julie Labrador. Hi, Julie. Thank you guys for being members. And if you want to become a Roberter and a member, the mods can put that link up in chat. I would love to have you part of the family. Look what happens when you call out bad behaviors. We really need to get to the bottom of all the witnesses, what happened, what this dude was doing prior to them gathering around him. I just can't see these kids being, you know, all aggressive, like, you're wearing scuba gear, fuck you. I just can't see that. And this young girl saying he was inappropriate. I want to know more. So thanks, you guys. Give me a thumbs up if you would. It is a free way to support the creators that you like. And I want to thank you guys for being here. Share this out on your social media. And thank you so much. So dance it out. Thank you, Maligator and Cousin Tracy, for your info in chat as well. And thank you, moderators. You guys are awesome.
Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Moderators, mount up. Maybe Skulls can go on a road trip to here. I don't know. Oh, and Melmo coming in hot with the last deets. That kid that died was an honor roll student and started his own business. That's very sad. We need to get to the bottom of it. We'll follow it. Dance it out, guys. See you guys later. Bye, Outdoorsy. Love you, Cousin Trace. Bye, Dr. Malmo 1. Shake your booties. Bye, Finn.
I don't give a damn. I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. You talk way too much. I have heard enough about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn.
We planted flowers on the side of the house.
Creek Town, dude. Oh man.
You wanna be, you wanna be, you wanna be with me. You wanna feel on the real, but I'm feeling differently. You're making plans to get to friends, but don't wanna face the fear.
Let me tell you something else.
Grandma just called and said you're supposed to go home.
Let me have a little fun, would you please?